Okay, welcome to the grammar review for Wings of Freedom, lesson 7 through 12. The first topic we are going to review today is the past perfect. We use the past perfect to indicate that one action happens before the other. The emphasis is on the action. Let's remember that the structure for the past perfect is had plus the third conjugation, or the past participle. So we have some examples. Pamela had already left the office when David arrived there. We have two actions that happen in the past. The first action, Pamela left the office, and the second action, in a chronological order, David arrived there. We use the past perfect to indicate the first action. So this is why we say Pamela had already left, because that was the first action chronologically speaking. Another example, after I had cooked dinner, my father brought takeout food. The first action is the fact that I cooked dinner. The second action, my father brought takeout food. So I can indicate the first action that happened chronologically by using the past perfect, after I had cooked. Remember that we use after plus the past perfect, and we use when, before, and by the time with the simple past. The past perfect continuous. We use the past perfect continuous to indicate that one action was in progress when something happened. The emphasis is on the duration of an action. The main distinction between the past perfect and the past perfect continuous is that you were talking about the duration. We need to use a past perfect continuous when we have the duration of the event. The example is, I had been studying for 3 hours when I fell asleep. As I mentioned the duration of the event, I have to use the past perfect continuous. I had been studying. We had been singing songs for 30 minutes when our neighbors called the police. The same thing happens over here. Something was in progress when a second action happened, but this time we are mentioning for how long. We are mentioning the duration of that action, so we need to use the past perfect continuous. I'm going to show you the distinction in 3 different phrases. The first one, I had already traveled to 20 countries when I was 25. This phrase is conjugated in the past perfect because I am focusing on the completion of an action. I'm focusing on the action itself. So the number is important, not the duration, when I was 25 years old. I had been traveling for 6 months through Asia when I ran out of money. When you mention the duration of an event and then a second action that interrupts the first one, we need to use the past perfect continuous. So this is why I say I had been traveling for 6 months. If you don't mention the duration of an event, you can simply use the simple past and say I was traveling when I ran out of money. If you don't include that piece of information for 6 months, you don't have to use the past perfect continuous. Now, when we're talking about both, neither, and either, or neither and either, you decide the pronunciation on the last two. We got to remember that both is used when you want to indicate that something is true for one and the other. The verb follows the plural pattern. So you were talking about two people that have one thing in common. So we use both and. The example is, both Angelina Jolie and Tiger Woods are American. She's American, he is American, so they have something in common. We conjugate the verb in the plural form. Both Andrew and Anderson work at Fisk. We are talking about two people, they have something in common, so we use the verb in the plural conjugation. Now, I'm going to show you 2 situations, and you have to think of a phrase using both and. You can pause the video if you want to have more time to think the phrase through before I give you the answer. So the first one is, Brazil is located in South America. So is Argentina. So how can we express these 2 ideas using the same phrase, one phrase, both and? So the correct answer would be, Both Brazil and Argentina are located in South America. We use are because both and this structure is followed by a plural form of the verb. Another example, London has hosted the Olympic Games, so has Paris. Try to think of a phrase that starts with both and. Okay, so the answer is both London and Paris have hosted the Olympic Games. Again, we have to conjugate the verb in the plural form. Now, let's take a look at neither. We use neither to indicate that a negative statement is the same for one and the other. The verb agrees with the nearest noun. So neither Amanda nor Matthew has to take the test again. I'm talking about a negative thing, and two people have this characteristic in common, so we use neither nor. Pay attention that we conjugate the verb according to the nearest noun. So Matthew, as we have the third conjugation, Matthew is a he. He has, Matthew has. Neither Amanda nor the boys have to take the test again. If I change Matthew, which is considered to be a singular noun, to the boys, which is plural, I have to change the verb as well because the boys have to take the test again. It's a plural form. The same, I'm going to give you a situation. You have to think how you could say these two pieces of information using neither nor. Japanese isn't easy, neither is Chinese. So the answer to this phrase would be neither Japanese nor Chinese is easy. I conjugate verb is because Chinese is singular. Messi has never won a World Cup. Neither has Cristiano Ronaldo. It's important to point that every time we say neither nor, they are considered to be negative particles, so we have to conjugate the verb in the singular form, the affirmative form. So the answer to this one would be neither Messi nor Cristiano Ronaldo has won a World Cup. I can't use another negative particle for this phrase. Now let's take a look at either. We use either to indicate that only one of two things or people are possible. The verb agrees with the nearest subject. I can either study for the test or watch Netflix. In this case, I don't have to conjugate the verb because I am talking about two objects. Either Jane or Mark is going to get a promotion. I'm talking about two people that are running or that are have the possibility of getting a promotion, but only one of them will. So we use either or, and we conjugate the verb based on the nearest subject, the same way we do with neither nor. Now, I don't know if I should get married or buy a bike. Try to think of a phrase using either or. The answer would be, I can either get married or buy a bike. Battlefield might get an European award. GTA 5 is also running for the same award. Either Battlefield or GTA 5 might get the gaming award or the European award. Okay? Now, moving forward, when we have indirect questions, we need to think about some characteristics first. Let's read the definition. Questions can be made directly or indirectly. Indirect questions are composed of two clauses. The final clause is composed as an affirmative sentence. So what do we have to think of? The first thing we have to check is what kind of questions we are talking about. This example, where does Brad Pitt live? When I ask that question, I have to think about whether this question is an open one, which means that I have to come up with an answer, or if it's a yes or no question, if it can be simply answered with a yes or no. Where does Brad Pitt live? I can't say yes or no. So in this case, I use the word where in my indirect question. I wonder where. After that, you have to think that the rest must be affirmative. So you cannot have inversions with the verb to be. You cannot use auxiliary verbs. So in the form of a question, of course. So this phrase would be, I wonder where Brad Pitt lives. Thus is not used because it is a question. It's a direct question. In the indirect question, I have to remove that and use the simple present. I have to conjugate that in the simple present in an affirmative way. When we have yes or no questions, we have to change using the word if. So, do you speak Italian? That is a yes or no question. I can say yes, I do. No, I don't. In this case, I have to use if. I would like to know if. After that, everything must be in an affirmative form. So, I would like to know if you speak Italian. Now, when we have WH or how questions, we have to change them by using the word that made it an open question, like when is your birthday? When I ask when is your birthday, when is the word that forces me to use a date. I can't say yes or no. So I have to use when in my indirect question as well. I've been curious to know when your birthday is. So, when we're talking about direct questions, you want to reproduce, when we're talking about direct speech, we want to reproduce exactly what the person said originally. So, the direct speech is used when you want to reproduce the original message by using quotation marks. Tom said, I'm going to visit my aunt in England. When I use quotation marks, I am reproducing 100% what the person said without making any changes. That is what direct speech is. In indirect speech, the indirect speech is used when you want to report the message. You mustn't use quotation marks. The indirect speech is used when you report something in a different day, in a different location, and as you are talking about something that happened in the past, you must always refer back to the past. Tom said to me, which is optional, that he was going to visit his aunt in England. Now, if you want to change a sentence to indirect speech, you have to change the verb tenses and pronouns. The direct speech is, I'm going to visit my aunt in England. The indirect speech would be, Tom said that he was going to visit his aunt in England. So in this case, I changed I'm, which is in the present, and the verb to be, to the past, he was, and my, which is a possessive pronoun, to his. Here are some examples of changes that need to be made. The present becomes the past becomes the past perfect, the present continuous becomes past continuous, and the past continuous becomes past perfect continuous. The present perfect becomes the past perfect. The present perfect continuous becomes the past perfect continuous. Can becomes could, will becomes would, may becomes might, must becomes had to. The imperative becomes the infinitive. Now, phrases with would, could, should, might, and had to don't change in indirect speech. Alice said, I should try a new hairstyle. Alice told her sister she should try a new hairstyle. All I have to change when I have would, could, should, might, and had to are the pronouns and the verbs or the time expressions that could be there. When a speaker reports a speech at a different time, the following changes happen. Past becomes the blank before, present then or that, future the following. So instead of saying yesterday, you say the day before, 2 days ago, 2 days before, last week, the week before, last month, the month before, last year, the year before. When you're talking about the present, now becomes then. Today becomes that day. This morning, that morning. Tonight, that night. On Saturday, that Saturday. For the future, tomorrow becomes the following day. Next week, the following week. Next Friday, the following Friday. Next month, the following month. Next year, the following year. Some verbs need to change if you are talking about a different place, if you are reporting a speech at a different place, like come becomes go, here becomes there, bring becomes take. Jackie said, I came home to spend time with my family last Christmas. If she said that, and you want to reproduce in a different place than the place that Jackie originally said that, you have to change some things. You would have to say, Jackie said that she had gone home to spend time with her family the Christmas before. Now, if you are talking about that, if you are reporting that at her place, you don't have to change the verb. Brian said, people shouldn't throw garbage here. Brian said that people shouldn't throw garbage here or there. If you are reporting exactly what Brian said in the same place he originally said that, you don't have to change here to there. But chances are you're not doing that, so we have to change it to there. Martin said, if you want, you can bring your own beverages this weekend. Martin said that if we wanted, I could take or bring my or our own beverages that weekend. Now, again, if you are in the same place as Martin was when he said that, you could use take the same way. But chances are you are reporting that in a different space, so we have to change take and use bring. Now, verbs can be used as an adjective before nouns by adding ing. The fighting women of Afghanistan. The loving touch of a mother. So, when we want to turn a verb into an adjective, we can use ing as well. We can use verbs as adverbs of manner by adding ing. So, Jonathan rushed into the hospital running. We know it's an adverb of manner because we ask the question, how? Running. Stella chose her car using her cell phone. How did she choose her car? Using her cell phone. So that is an adverb of manner. Verbs can be used as subjects by adding ing. Setting your own business isn't easy. He learned that being honest was worth it. In these two examples, we have verbs as subjects or objects, depending on the phrase that you're looking at. But in both cases, you have to use ing in the verb. Now, verbs can be used as objects by adding ing. I think she needed some relaxing. If you want to get good marks on your tests, you'd better do a lot of reading. So we know that this is an object because we can ask the question what, or we can ask the question. So what did she need? Or what had you better do? Here are some examples. Verbs can be used as nouns by adding a possessive followed by verb ing. The fact that I'm moving to Japan. Now this structure is the one that sounds the most strange to us, but it is supernatural. It happens all the time. All we have to do is use a possessive plus a verb ing. So I am moving. I say, I'm moving to Japan. The fact that we watch movies. We watch, so we have to use a possessive for we. Our watching movies. The fact that they smoke too much. They. What is the possessive pronoun for they? They're smoking too much. The fact that I am late. I am. I have to use a possessive and the verb to be. My being late. The fact that he speaks Chinese. He speaks. I have to use a possessive for he, and I have to use the verb in the ing form. He is speaking Chinese. No plus verb ing meaning not allowed. The structure no plus verb ing can be used in order to express that something isn't allowed. No smoking, no talking on your phone. It means that it's prohibited. When we have the structure determiner plus noun plus of plus possessive, we want to talk about possessions. One of my friends can be a friend of mine. It is important to remember that we have to use the correct possessive. So a good way of checking if you have the right possessive is by checking if that possessive ends with an S, because it should end in an S, unless you're talking about mine. A friend of mine, mine doesn't end with an S. All the others should, like yours, his, hers, its, ours, yours, theirs. So one of her dogs, I have to use this structure. It becomes a dog of hers. One of Sally's teachers, a teacher of Sally's. One of our cars, a car of ours. Some of their crimes. This is plural, so we say some crimes of theirs. Now we're going to check some phrasal verbs. To throw away is to get rid of something. You throw something in the trash bin. To take on is when you take on responsibility, when you take on a new job. That's to take on. To come down with the flu is when you get sick with a disease. To pass by when you are moving in the direction of length. To seize an opportunity when you get a chance and you use it. To check up on someone is to follow that person, keep track on what they're doing. To get away with a crime usually is when you are not punished for it. To walk out on someone means to abandon that person. Jump to conclusions is when you don't have all the facts, but you get to a conclusion anyways. Make it up to someone. When you make a mistake and the other person is mad at you, you have to think of a way to make it up to that person. So you have to please that person in a way. Fall apart is when something is in very bad shape, like this car is falling apart. Look after is similar to take care. You look after people that need your help or people that you love. Cut it out, please. Stop saying that. It's not fun. Wreck your brain is when you try too hard to remember something. Freak out is when you are filled with anxiety or happiness sometimes, but it usually doesn't indicate something good. Brag about, when you think that everything you have is better than anybody else's. So you brag about your car, and you brag about your clothes, and you brag about how intelligent you are. Bragging about is not a good thing, I believe. To allege, or when we say something that is alleged, we don't have any proof. So when we say alleged murder, we don't know if that there was a murder. We couldn't find the body. There's no evidence. We're still working on it. To peek out, it's literally what's happening. You're picking out stuff. You pick it with your hands. Look into, to investigate. To cut down on is when you reduce something. You can cut down on sugar. You can cut down on junk food. To come up with a plan, come up with a solution. To sign up for is literally getting a pen and signing up, or saying, yes, I agree, you're signing up for something. To run on, some cars run on fossil fuels, other cars run on electricity, so run on is what powers a certain thing. To be cut out, that means that you were born to do something, like you have the natural abilities to do something. To cut down on is to reduce, we have already mentioned that. To pass away is when you die. To pass out is when you lose conscious. Be careful not to mistake one with the other. To find out is to discover. To break into is when you enter a place by breaking the door or breaking an entrance. To blow up is to explode. To go straight is when you start living within the law, you don't commit any crimes. To give up is when you say that you don't want to continue, you quit. To make off with is to steal something, to take another person's property, just like that bunny. That bunny's going to go to hell. To beat up when you attack somebody. To hit the road is to travel. To hook up is when you start having a romantic relationship, but it's not so serious to the point that you say you're dating. To be caught red-handed is when you're committing a crime and somebody catches you in the act of committing that. To make up your mind is when you have to make a decision. To get mixed up is when you get confused, you don't understand what's going on. To rush into things is when you like get the lead and you want to do something, but you don't follow, you don't respect time. You just want to do stuff pretty fast. It doesn't work. To keep your eyes open is to be alert, pay attention to your surroundings. To break up is to end a romantic relationship. To call off is to cancel. To take up is to fill or occupy. To help out is to help. To put off is to change the date or time of something so that it can happen later. To bring up is to raise a child. To wait on is to serve tables. To ask out is to invite for a date. To make fun of is to ridicule, to laugh at. To do without is to manage in spite of being without something. Like we can't live without water, but we can live without our cell phones. It's not easy, but we can. To figure out, to understand. To stay up is to go to bed later than usual. To catch on is something that has become popular recently. To get into is to enter. To bring down is to disappoint somebody or to make someone depressed. To get up is to get out of bed. To be in for is when you are about to experience something unpleasant. To keep up is to be able to understand or deal with something that is happening or changing very fast. So we have Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Not recommending that TV show. To put something in the place or container where it's usually kept is to put away. To get by, to be able to live or deal with a situation with difficulty, usually by having just enough of something you need, such as money. To cause something to happen is to bring about, so one thing brings about the other. To get rid of, to remove or throw away something unwanted, like we should get rid of the Nazis. To make the most of, to use or enjoy something as much as possible. To take over, well, this is pretty much you take control. To count on when you know that you have someone to support you. To show up is when you show at the place. To get the ball rolling is to start to do something, to start some action. To get up on the wrong side of the bed means to have a bad day from the start, to be in a bad mood from the start of the day. To get a life is to stop wasting time on trivial or hopeless matters, to do something different. To get cold feet is to become nervous or anxious about a future event. To pass out is to lose conscious. To pass away is to die, just like we have seen before. To chicken out is when you are too afraid to do something. To be about is when you are almost in the beginning of a process, like I'm about to cry, or this guy is about to start painting, but he never will. That is an eternal loop. Break up, make up is when you get back together. Give up we have already seen. Work out is to do physical exercise. To look up to someone is to admire. Back someone up is when you give support. Look down on someone is when you think that that person is less than you are. Put up with someone is when you have to tolerate that person. Let someone down is when you disappoint that person. Get over is when you start to feel better after something bad has happened, or you can get over a disease. To be about to is when you are seconds away from doing something, like I'm about to dance, I'm about to cry. To make out can be to find a solution or to kiss. To come out, it can be literally coming out of a place, a closed place, or when you're talking about movies, books, CDs, they all come out in a specific date. To run for, when people are running for public office, like You can run for president, you can run for mayor. Stand for, it represents, what does 24/7 stands for? It stands for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To put off is when you change the dates. To call off is to cancel. You can put on your clothes and you can put on weight. Hang around is when you go to a place without a specific purpose. To do away with is when you eliminate something, like we should with the Nazis. And that's it. I hope you have enjoyed, and if you have any questions, please ask me right now. Bye-bye.